Hi, I'm Lucy, and today I'm going to show you how to create your own knitted zipper pouch. We're going to use the moss stitch, which is a knit one purl one method, so that you can create your own. Okay, so these are the 3 bag sizes. We've got the long one, which is ideal for a knitting project. You can get some small balls of yarn and knitting needles up to about 30 centimeters. These are actually a bit longer, 33 centimeters, so you can fit a small project into that one. We then have the smaller case, so it's the same height but it's not as wide or long, and that one makes a great pencil case, pen case, that kind of thing. Or again, you can fit a small crochet project and hooks into that one, and that's the one that we'll be looking at today. And then we have a slightly larger one, so this is a bit wider, a bit taller, and this is great for again, you could use it as a project bag, a small project bag, or a makeup bag, that kind of thing. So as I say, today we're going to be focused on this smaller one, but the PDF version of the pattern comes with instructions for all 3 sizes. Okay, so today we're going to be making the smaller of the 3 sizes for our pouch. So we're going to need some yarn. I've used Paint Box Simply Chunky in the colour teal, which is colour number 72. It comes in 100 gram balls. You'll need 1 ball, will make any of the 3 sizes. You're going to need your knitting needles. So I'm using 6mm knitting needles. I am using circular needles. That is purely because they're shorter, which when I'm working on top of a table like this is just easier. But I'll be working back and forth as if I was using straight needles. And as long as they are 25 centimeters or longer, that's fine. You'll want some scissors for cutting your yarn at the end. You'll want a way to keep a track of the rows that you're working, so you can use a row counter like this. You can use a digital row counter, or you can just use pencil and paper just to keep a track of your rows. And then the other thing you're going to need is a darning needle, to be used later on for sewing up the sides of your pouch. You will also need a 25 centimeter zip for this size, and I think that's it. Yep. So you'll want to cast on using the cable cast on method. I've already done that. If you're not familiar with the cable cast on, I do have another YouTube video which will show you how to do that, and I'll pop a link to that video in the description below. So I've cast on 31 stitches, as I say, using the cable cast on method, and we're just going to work a knit one, purl one all the way along this row, and actually every subsequent row as well will be the same, just knit one, purl one. So because we've got an uneven number of stitches, we will be able to just knit the first stitch of every row, and the last stitch of every row will also be a knit. So each knit row that we work, we will do another knit row on top of that in the next row. So for a knit stitch, we want our yarn at the back of the needle, and we're just going to insert our needle into the front of the stitch on our left needle. We're going to wrap the yarn around through the middle, and we're going to pull down our right needle and catch that yarn, and then just take that stitch off the left needle. We then pull our yarn through the middle, and we work into the front of the next stitch on our left needle, but this time going down into that stitch. And then again we wrap our yarn around, we catch it, with our right needle and we take that stitch off the left needle, and we just continue that all the way along. So yarn through the middle, going up into the front of that stitch on our left needle for a knit stitch, and again we're going to yarn through the middle, catch it and take that stitch off, yarn back through and down into the stitch for our purl. And we're just going to continue that all the way along this row, just remembering to always bring that yarn through the middle of the 2 needles in between stitches. So taking it to the back for a knit stitch and bringing it back to the front for a purl stitch. So what you'll notice is that when you work a knit stitch, you are pushing that loop onto the back of your right needle, and then when you work a purl stitch, you are bringing that loop forward to the front on our right needle. So you can always tell whether you've just worked a knit stitch or a purl stitch based on where that loop is sitting on your right needle. So as I say, with a purl it will always be at the front, with a knit it will always be at the back. So that's an easy way to be able to tell what stitch you've just worked. And those bumps are what will form the basis of this moss stitch pattern. And because we are working on top of the same stitch each time we start a new row, we are doing a knit on a knit and a purl on a purl, it alternates where those bumps fall, which you'll start to see in the next row in a moment. The reason we did a cable cast on is because it forms a stiffer start to the work, because the start of our work and also the end of our work will become the top of the bag where we're sewing in our zip. So I forgot to mention at the start, the other things you will need when you come to sewing in your zip are just standard sewing thread in a colour that matches your zip and the colour you've picked for your yarn, and obviously a standard sewing needle as well. So I'm hoping that I'm not going too fast. I apologise if I am. As I say, because we've got this uneven number of stitches, we will end the row with a knit stitch, as well as beginning each row with a knit stitch. Okay, so that's our last stitch for the row. And what you'll see quite clearly, the cable cast on has created this sort of rope effect foundation, and then it's really easy to see our bumps. So all those purl stitches where the bump has come to the front of the work are really easy to see, and if we look at the back again, all those knit stitches are really easy to see. So we're now going to turn that work. Obviously if you're not using a circular needle you won't have this fighting against you. Where we worked a knit stitch last time and that bump fell to the back, it's now at the front on our left needle. So we're going to work that knit stitch again on top of the knit stitch, so the bump goes to the back, whereas previously, which is technically the front of our work, but we've turned it. So what will start to happen now is we'll get those alternates in the bumps, and that's where our moss stitch is formed. This sort of well, I don't even know how to describe it actually, almost sort of diamond like diagonal pattern that you get to the work. It gives this nice diagonal sort of effect. So I'm going to carry on working, just alternating knit and purl stitches. Really simple stitch to work. Obviously, if you've worked an even number of stitches, then you have to be a bit more careful when it comes to counting your rows. So obviously we've worked one row, so I shall, there we go, one row worked, and we're now on our second row. If we'd done an even number of stitches, we would have had to start with a purl stitch on the second row and every other alternate row like that, which is, so I am going to just carry on working in moss stitch until I have 61 rows complete, or get towards the end of 61 rows. We just literally keep repeating this pattern, just knit one, purl one, all the way along each and every row. And when we get to 61 rows, I will come back and show you how we are going to cast off. So I am now working row 61, which is our final row before casting off. And you'll see I'm still following that exact same pattern, just knit one and purl one. And you can see the texture that produces, the moss stitch that this is called, this particular stitch pattern. These lovely sort of diagonal lines, slight almost bobbly texture to the fabric, and it is one of the most simple stitch patterns that you can learn, nice and easy, but produces this lovely texture. So when we get to the end of this row, I will show you how we're going to cast off for this project in a similar, or which will produce a similar finished edge to the cast on edge, so that we've got a bit of symmetry with the edge of our bag, or the top of our bag where we're going to sew on our zip. Okay, just a couple more to do. There we go, that's the last one. So our first stitch we cast off as we normally would, so just by doing a normal knit stitch across, and then we're going to continue to cast off using a knit one, purl one. So we're still going to need to pull our working yarn through the center of our needles, and then we will cast off that second one and bring our yarn back through before we then slip that stitch over. What we're going to do next is actually go in through the right side of this stitch that's on our right hand needle and slide it across to the left hand needle, and then we're going to take our right needle and go in through the left on the back of that stitch and slip it back across to that right needle, and then we're going to work our next stitch. We've already slid our yarn through the middle, so we know it's a knit stitch that we're doing next, like so, and then we'll pull our yarn back to the front ready for the next stitch to be cast off or slid across. Worked, that's the word I'm looking for, to be worked. Okay, we're then going to pass this right stitch over that left stitch and off the needle altogether, and we're going to do the same with this stitch as we did with the last one. So we're going to go into the right side of it and slide it across to that left needle, and then we'll take our right needle and go in through the left but at the back and slide it over again. Okay, we'll then work our next stitch, which is a purl. Again, we know that because we already moved our yarn to the front, so we'll work that stitch as normal and take our yarn back through, ready for the next one. And then we pass this stitch over the first one, and we repeat this process of going into the right of that stitch from the front and pass it across to the left, and then back in through the left at the back and slide it onto the right needle. And what that is doing is it's just twisting these stitches. Don't know if you can see, hopefully you can see the effect that we're getting of a sort of a rope effect basically. So our next stitch is a knit, so we work that as normal, bring our yarn back through, pass the first stitch over the one we just did, like so, and off our needle altogether. And then again we go in through the right at the front with our left needle, slide it over, and then come in at the back from the left onto the right needle and slide it across. Hopefully you can see that kind of, we are just twisting really that stitch to give us this rope effect. Okay, we then work our next stitch, which is a purl as normal, pass our yarn through the middle again, cast off that stitch, the first stitch, and we're left with one stitch on our right needle again. So we're just going to continue repeating this process of sliding it back to the left and then back to the right, and it does a full twist of that stitch. So our yarn is at the back, so we know we're now doing a knit stitch. Make sure we pull that yarn back through to the front, ready for the next stitch to be worked, and pass that stitch over the one we just did. Okay, so again we've now got one stitch on our right needle again, so we need to twist it by passing it across like so, and that just does a complete twist of the stitch. We work our purl. You can see a bit better now this rope effect forming, hopefully. Okay, so I'm just going to continue doing that all the way across, and I will come back and meet you at the end. And we have just one stitch left to knit. We'll cast off that one, and then finally just going to give that last stitch a twist like so. I'm going to just cut my yarn, leave a reasonable length ready for sewing up the sides. And just pull that yarn tail through gently. So what you'll see is we've mirrored to a degree that rope effect from our cast on with our bind off as well. So it's not as prominent, and it's obviously not a perfect match, but it's close, and it just gives a little bit of continuity to our pouch. So I would keep that sort of more rope effect edge as my outside edge when I come to make up my bag. that's just my personal preference. Obviously you can do it however you want. So what I will be doing next is sewing up the sides with my cast on and bind off tail ends to form that pouch. So if you watch part 2 of this video, you will see how we do that, and then in part 3 we will add our zip. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you look forward to the next one. If you'd like to be notified when that gets released onto YouTube, then please subscribe to my channel below. Thank you for watching.